The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you and your family this week in Cincinnati on 9 on your side.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. First today, my interview with Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown. We covered a lot of topics, from the president, Congress, and the Mueller investigation to whether he now regrets deciding to not run for president. Senator Brown was in town Wednesday to pitch his new tax plan. It would expand the earned income tax credit by about 25% for families with children, and it would make the child tax credit fully refundable, so those in lower income families could completely benefit from it. It's estimated that would help 43 million children. That tax bill is where our conversation began. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Good to be back. Thanks.
Let's talk about why you're here today, to talk about a tax cut that you're proposing. You have how many co-sponsors?
46 sponsors.
How many of them are Republicans?
They're all Democrats at this point. 4 years ago, we started the same effort with all Democrats on expanding and making permanent parts of the earned income tax credit, which puts money in the pockets of people making 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a year. It started off with all Democrats. It was enacted into law with the Republican House and Republican Senate. We'll follow the same rule this year.
Our deficit is ballooned, so how are we going to pay for this?
Well, it's interesting because when Republicans in a party line vote passed the Trump tax bill, the tax law, 75% of those benefits went to the richest 1%. And they just blew a hole in the federal budget deficit. They had no interest in any fiscal responsibility. The tax cuts went to the rich and generally don't trickle down. It didn't result in job growth. It didn't result in wage growth. It resulted in putting a lot of money in the pockets of millionaires and billionaires. Our bill should be paid for by scaling back that tax cut. One of the one that went overwhelming to the wealthy. The one provision that's just still astounds me. If you have a plant producing product in Evendale or in Norwood or in Cincinnati, you pay 21% tax rate. If you move to Mexico, you get 50% off your taxes. And we should cancel that tax break, first of all, because it means more jobs overseas. So you pay for it by fixing the tax code the way it is now.
Just want to be clear about this, the tax credit. So if I wanted to take it at $500, for example, this year off my taxes, I would not get it the next year. How do you even relay this to folks so that they understand it, that they're getting it this year if they want it, but they don't get it next year? Is there a whole educational purpose that has to come through with this?
First of all, the $500 that you're talking about, the advance, is a small part optional on this bill, this law. The law expands the earned income tax credit. It says if you're making $25,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year, you have children, you're eligible to get a what's called a refundable tax credit, meaning thousands of dollars in your pocket when you file your taxes. It opens that up to people under 25 and people over 65 who don't have kids living with them, because they, in essence, get taxed into poverty. If you're right above the poverty level, you pay the Social Security payroll tax. That taxes you below the poverty level. So this will restore those cuts so that you actually get money in your pocket. Third, if you have an emergency, if your car breaks down, you can't afford the $500 to get your car fixed so you can go to work, you can get a $500 advance. You don't get that $500 next year in your refundable tax credit, but you can get a $500 advance so you don't have to go to the payday lender, which in so many cases leads to a downward financial spiral. And you will know that. It's up to us to get the word out. You won't necessarily know that.
So you have 46 co-sponsors. What's next? Where does it go now?
What's next is to work with Republicans, including Senator Portman. He and I sit on the Finance Committee, the Tax Writing Committee together. We will work together on this. The Congress is considering other tax issues, and we will have discussions about including that in any kind of tax issue we pass.
Do you suspect he'll support it?
I suspect we will pass this. I don't know individual senator. I mean, I can't predict individual people, but 4 years ago when we did this back in 2014 and 15, nobody predicted we could get a bill like this that expanded the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit and made it permanent. I mean, the Congress, the White House looks like a retreat for Wall Street executives. I mean, these huge tax cuts that go to the richest people in the country. Congress moves on that and then turns its back on working families making 20 to 40 to 50,000 a year. And I think public pressure will say to members of Congress, you've left people behind that are moderate income people, that Congress always does tax cuts for rich people. It's time Congress looked out for the middle class and for those that struggle to get into the middle class.
Republicans, of course, have a much different view of the tax cut than Senator Brown. They would argue it cuts taxes for families, created jobs, sent the stock market to all-time highs, and that over time, that growth will lower the federal debt. We reached out to Senate Majority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell of Kentucky for his response to Brown's tax plan and its chances for passage in the Senate, but we have not yet heard back. Right now, we have a crazy amount of Democrats who have thrown their hat in the ring and said, I want to be president. You dabbled with that. You took your toe in the water. Are you sorry that you decided not to? Next on This Week in Cincinnati, how Senator Brown answered that question and the issue he wants the Democrats now in the race for president to focus on.
The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on your side.